Welcome to the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel. I'm your host, ArmaniTalks. In this channel, I'm covering communication skills for you to level up your way with words and become much more articulate. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome aboard. Every single day of the week, I'm dropping brand new content on how to become a better speaker, writer, and power connector. Join the tribe by hitting that subscribe button right on below. Hit that bell notification and never miss another video again. In today's episode, we are entering the world of social skills, and I'm going to be talking about the difference between listening to respond versus listening to listen. The fundamental difference lies in the fact that when you're listening to listen, you're actually trying to input information, while when you're listening to respond, you're actually trying to output information. And whenever someone cannot listen appropriately, this will cause relationship issues, business issues, and just issues in life in general. You'll be shocked by how many communication skills quirks just melt away when both parties are listening to one another. And it's very easy to tell someone, look, can you stop listening to respond and just listen to listen? It's not that simple though. The reason that it's not that simple is because these people that are listening to respond, they're often coming from a place of trauma. Now, what do I mean by this? What I mean by this is that imagine there's a guy named Billy. Billy, for the most part, can listen every now and then with certain topics. He's not in an this urgency to respond. He can absorb information pretty well. But this guy, he's recently been getting into a lot of arguments with his wife. His wife is like, I really wish you would take some more risks in terms of your life pursuits. You're always talking about wanting to be an entrepreneur, and here you are, year after year, working this 9-to-5 job. What gives? When are you going to take this risk? And this guy that's being attacked, he's like, well, I mean, I will take this risk, but you got to understand, I just need to wait for the right time. And then she's like, well, what do you mean the right time? I mean, quit being a sissy. And once she calls him a sissy like that, it hurts his pride. He feels bitter about this topic known as entrepreneurship. A couple of years goes on by, and this guy never pulled the trigger. And he never started his entrepreneurship journey. He just stays in the 9-to-5 grind, which he deems a failure, but a silent failure. Whenever his wife tries to confront him, he has an arsenal of excuses for her. So nowadays, she doesn't even bring it up anymore. She's like, yeah, he's just not a risk taker. One day, this guy is talking to his little brother, and the little brother started a Shopify store. He's talking about how the business is doing so well, and he's actually thinking about quitting his job and going full-time into entrepreneurship mode. He's having a conversation with the past entrepreneur, ambitious individual. And this guy, he's listening to respond right now because the topic of entrepreneurship is a trigger word for him. It reminds him of trauma. It reminds him of all the arguments in the past that he had with his wife. It reminds him of how he hated his boss. He kept wanting to say, you know what, I'm out of here. I don't need this. But he never could. It reminds him of how he squandered his potential. And now when his little brother is saying that he's going to go full in on entrepreneurship, this guy is reverted back into the past. And now he's actually looking to output information rather than looking to input information. He's like, well, little brother, you got to understand that entrepreneurship isn't that safe. Little brother, I mean, have you thought about Shopify? Little brother, X, Y, and Z. And the little brother is like, big bro, why are you just talking over me so much? Why are you cutting me off mid-sentence? Why don't you listen to me, man? It doesn't really feel like you're listening to a word that I'm saying. It seems like you have all of your line items already prepared and you're just sharing that with me. For a guy like this, it's not as simple as just saying, just listen, bro, because he needs to work on himself. And this is the uncomfortable truth in regards to social skills. A lot of the long-lasting answers will require us to work on ourselves. So this guy eventually has to make peace with his entrepreneurship past. So whenever he is hearing topics that deal with entrepreneurship, ambition, escaping the 9-to-5 rat race, when people use phrasing like that, he realizes it's not about him, it's about them. If you're someone that is in the habit of listening to respond rather than listening to listen, the first thing you want to do is you want to identify if you're always like that or if you're like that with certain topics. If you're always like that, you really need to just work on your listening skills. Be more curious about the other person. Exercise what I call the 30-70 rule, where you let the other person speak for 70% of the time and you listen for 30% of the time. This is a very simple way to ease yourself to shut the hell up and listen. Now, if you're in the different category where you're one of these guys that only begins to listening to respond with certain topics, then rather than just working on your listening, you need to actually address the topics. Which topics are these? Why do you act like that with these certain topics? Have you made peace with it yet? Because until you make peace with it, you may just sort of revert back to listening to respond, sort of like that guy did with his entrepreneurship dreams. Recap. Listening to listen is when you're actually inputting information. Listening to respond is when you're trying to output information. Some people listen to respond all the time. And when you do something like that, you need to work on your listening skills. The way that you do that is by being more curious about the other person and exercising the 70-30 rule, where you listen for 70% of the time and you let them talk for 70% of the time. All right? Now, if you're someone who is listening to respond with certain topics, then you gotta address the topics, fam. There's a lot of pain buried in it, and it is coloring your perception of the world. Fix that coloring and view the world from a completely different lens. If you enjoyed today's talk and you want to learn more about social skills, be sure to check out my book, The Charisma King. Within this book, I drop a lot of practical insights on how you can listen much better. Listening is way more powerful than talking. So if you're one of these guys that's always planning the next thing that you're going to say, then you're hurting your charisma. Fix that by learning how to do a thing called 4D listening. What is 4D listening, you ask? Well, that's something you are going to find out in the Charisma King. Learn how to improve the world of communication through your ears. To check out the Charisma King, either go on ArmaniTalks.com, and if you are watching from the TV, scan this barcode right on here and grab your copy today. Level up your social skills. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will catch you next time.